Hello, learners. I am welcoming you once more in my lecturing series on electromagnetic theory for Physics 2, third semester BTech course. Myself is Dr. Sucharita Bhattacharya, Associate Professor of Physics from Guru Nanak Institute of Technology, Kolkata. Today, I am doing the lecture session 10 for the streams I already mentioned is Computer Science and Engineering and Information Technology. Now, today we are starting the submodule 4.03 of module 4 on electromagnetic theory. Actually, in my last lecture session, I have completed the magnetostatics. Naturally, today we are starting the submodule 4.03 in the form of time varying fields and Maxwell's equations. Now, the portions to be covered here is Faraday's laws, concept of displacement current, Maxwell's field equations with physical significance, wave equation in free space, Maxwell's wave equations in free space, and transverse nature of electromagnetic waves. The total number of lectures allocated here is 2. Definitely for numerical problems, we have to take one more session. Okay. Now, the course objective for electromagnetic theory already I have discussed twice. Still, for your convenience, let us get it once more. Actually, this electromagnetic theory provide you the exposure to the foundations of electrostatics, magnetostatics already done, and electromagnetic inductions. Today we are starting that, which ultimately helps you to reach Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations, and it will highlight ultimately from there the nature of electromagnetic waves, including their polarization property. This knowledge is applied in communication and networking. Now, after completion of this course, what you will be able to do? You will be able to understand and explain the phenomena of electrostatics, magnetostatics, and electromagnetic theory. You will be able to apply the knowledge of electromagnetic theory in communication and networking, and you will be able to analyze the change in electric and magnetic fields in various systems. That means these are the course outcomes. Now, let us take a look what we are going to do today. Today, we are starting our first lesson out of the 2 lessons what are allocated to us. There, we will introduce what about electromagnetic induction in the form of Faraday's laws. Then displacement current will be discussed to some extent, not in very detail for today's lecture session. And then we will go for modified Ampere's law. Naturally, after that, we will discuss the Maxwell's field equations and their physical significances. So, the questions what are going to be addressed in today's lecture session are as follows. Is the Faraday's law, first one. Next is integral and differential form of Faraday's laws. What about that? Next is basic electromagnetic field equations so far we have discussed and what we will discuss ultimately. Then inconsistency in Ampere's law that we are going to address today. Next, Maxwell's modification introducing displacement current so far as inconsistency in Ampere's law is concerned. Next, we will go for modification of Ampere's law, and then Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations and physical significances. Now, what about the electromagnetic induction and the Faraday's laws today? Let us start with it. Actually, the Oersted's discovery first gave us the idea that electric field can be produced, magnetic field can be produced by electric current. I'm sorry. Oersted's discovery first gave us that idea that magnetism could be produced by electric current. That is way back in 1820. Naturally, at that point, the scientists looked for the reverse effect. That means, is there any possibility to produce the electric field by magnetic, is there any possibility to produce the electric field or the current by magnetism? It was Faraday who, for the first time, way back in 1831, got the answer in affirmative through his famous series of experiments. Michael Faraday's famous series of experiments is reported everywhere. So all of you know that. Let us try to take a look. What about that? From where Faraday for the first time gave the answer that yet it is possible to get the electric field and the current from magnetism, whereas Oersted found the reverse one, that is the production of the magnetic field from the electric current. Now, what about the Faraday's experiment? Let us take a look at this figure. Very simple arrangement is shown here. One magnet is taken. Let us start with any bar magnet, say. So lines of force are coming out. This is North Pole and this is the South Pole. And this is a loop of wire. Nothing is there, simple loop of wire, and it is connected to a galvanometer. You know, it can detect the current. So if something is there in the loop, so that is the galvanometer. Now the first experiment what Faraday performed, he pulled a loop of wire through a magnetic field. He pulled a loop of wire through the magnetic field. He found galvanometer deflection. That means current is found to flow through the loop of wire. Actually, you can pull the loop towards the magnet. You will get the deflection in one side. If you pull the loop a little bit away from the magnet, you will find what actually Faraday got it, and you will also find that the deflection will be in the opposite direction. Similarly, in the second experiment, Faraday moved the magnet holding the loop constant. Previously, loop was moving, magnet was constant. Now, loop is made fixed and magnet is moving. Okay. He moved the magnet holding the loop till again a current is found to flow in the loop. Obviously, if you move the magnet towards it, very close to it, you will get more deflection. If you go away from it, deflection will decrease, but you will find it. Now, there is a third possibility. With both the loop and the magnet at rest, keep both of them at rest, he changed the strength of the magnetic field. That means in place of this type of bar magnet, there he used an electromagnet. And changing the strength of current, he found the change of strength of the field, but kept both of them to be fixed. That means magnetic field and the loop. But again, he detected that current is found to flow in the loop, which was detected by the galvanometer. That means in all three experiments, one thing was common, that is the change of magnetic flux linked with this loop. Change of the magnetic flux linked with the loop. So, what was his inferences? A changing magnetic field induces an electric field. Because of this change of flux linked with this loop, he thought that he found the electric field, that means the current, which is detected by the galvanometer through the movement of its pointer. So, a changing magnetic field induces an electric field, and he concluded that a transient EMF could be produced in a closed circuit by a magnet or any current carrying conductor, and this is called the induced EMF. And this phenomenon has been given the name of electromagnetic induction. So, a transient EMF can be produced in a closed circuit by a magnet or any current carrying conductor, which is known as the induced EMF, and the phenomenon is known as the electromagnetic induction. Now, this discovery of Faraday for the first time made the commercial development of electricity possible in the form of electric generator transformer. So commercial development of electricity was possible because of Faraday's discovery way back in 1831 in the form of electric generator and the transformer, and that is basically the most important application of Faraday's laws at the very beginning. Okay, let us now move to this Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, formally how it can be stated. Actually, it is told Faraday's laws. So basically, there are two parts, and both of them are combined to give a single one, sometimes called Faraday's law also. Now, what about Faraday's first law? Already we have seen it. Whenever relative motion exists between a magnetic field and a closed circuit, such that the magnetic flux linked with the circuit changes, and EMF is induced in the circuit. The induced EMF exists in the circuit as long as the change of flux exists. Quite obvious. Because it is appearing because of this rate of change of flux. So naturally, magnetic flux linked with the circuit, when changes, then EMF is induced. So long as the change of flux is there, so EMF will be there. Now, what about the second law? That is the magnitude of induced EMF. The magnitude of the induced EMF is found to be proportional to the rate of change of magnetic flux through the circuit. So magnitude of the induced EMF is proportional to the rate of change of magnetic flux through the circuit. So in the first law, it is told that if relative motion is there, so there is the flux linked with the circuit changes, then you will get the EMF. And what about the amount of EMF, the magnitude of EMF, that is given in the law 2. Actually, during the explanation of the experiment, I told you that if there is relative motion and between the loop and the magnet, and if they are coming closer together, so that the number of magnetic field lines or flux lines which are linked with the loop increases, definitely the amount of deflection will increase. And if it moves away, so the rate is decreases, then amount of deflection decreases. So that is represented here, that it is the rate of change of magnetic flux linked with the circuit, that is the induced EMF. So let us now take a look how it is formulated. If at any time t, flux linked with a closed coil is phi, then according to Faraday's laws of electromagnetic, EMF is induced EMF in the coil is E proportional to d dt of phi. D dt of phi, that means E proportional to d phi dt. So if at any time t, flux linked with a closed coil is phi, then according to Faraday's law, EMF induced in the coil is E proportional to d phi dt. Now, for electromagnetic induction, according to Lenge's law, we all know that the induced current always flows in such a direction as to oppose the very cause to which it is due. For electromagnetic induction, it is known that the induced current always flows in such a direction as to oppose the very cause to which it is due. Naturally, it will give the direction of induced EMF or the current. And since it opposes the cause to which it is due, so this EMF, if it is the induced EMF, there must be a minus sign in front of d phi dt. So the law expressed by putting a negative sign before d phi dt gives us the direction of the induced EMF. Direction of the induced EMF. So using Lenge's law, we are getting the induced EMF expression as E equal to minus k d phi dt, where k is the constant of proportionality. Now, if phi is measured in Weber, because it is the flux we considered, T is in second and E is in volt, obviously K comes out to be unity. So in SI system, Faraday's law formally is expressed as E equal to minus d phi dt. In SI system, Faraday's law formally is expressed as E equal to minus d phi dt, which is also called Neumann's law too, as Neumann deduced it from theoretical consideration. Faraday's law sometimes is called the Neumann's law because Neumann deduced it from the theoretical consideration. Okay. Now, let us move to the Faraday's laws, its integral and differential form. Already we got formally how to express the Faraday's law. Now let us move to its integral and the differential form as we did for other laws in our electromagnetic theory discussion. For that purpose, let us consider a coil of wire C. We are considering a coil of wire C enclosing a surface S and which is kept in a magnetic field B. Total magnetic flux to this closed surface obviously is given by B dot ds. The magnetic flux to C is given by phi equal to surface integration B dot ds. Now, according to Faraday's law, EMF induced in the closed circuit is written as E equal to minus d phi dt. So it is minus ddt of integration over S B dot ds minus ddt of integration over S B dot ds. Now, if E is the electric field at an element dl of the contour. So, if E is an electric field at an element dl of the contour, then EMF can be expressed as closed loop integration E dot dl. I think all of you can remember this definition of EMF from your school level. What does it represent? The total work done in carrying a unit positive charge once round this closed loop is nothing but the electromotive force. The total work done in carrying a unit positive charge once round this closed loop of wire is nothing but the EMF, that is electromotive force. In our case, it is the induced one for Faraday's law. So, EMF basic definition in terms of electric field is also mentioned here as we are considering a closed loop enclosing a surface S. So, integral form of Faraday's law. Now, let us take a look. E is represented as closed loop integration E dot dl equal to from this expression minus ddt of integration over S B dot ds. That can be written as minus S del B del T dot ds. I am coming to this partial derivative term, but before that, let us take a look at the integral form of Faraday's law once more. That is E dot dl equal to minus ddt of B dot ds equal to minus del B del T dot ds over surface integration. Why we have changed it when it is inside the integration? Because time derivative, when can be taken inside the integration, it becomes a partial derivative as B is a function of position coordinates as well. B is function of x, y, z as well as t. When you are taking the time derivative only inside the integration, you have to write it in partial derivative. That concept we have also already utilized in case of equation of continuity. Okay. So this is the integral form of Faraday's law. Let us now come to the differential form. For that purpose, apply Stokes' theorem on the left of the equation. Stokes' theorem converts the line integral into the corresponding surface integration. Line integration to surface integration. So E dot dl was there. Now we are getting del cross E dot ds using the Stokes' theorem. That means curl of E dot ds vector, that is aerial vector, means n cap into ds. So line integral converted to surface integral on the left, and on the right we have minus del b del t dot ds on S. So on both sides we are now having the surface integration where S can be big or small. So S being an arbitrary surface, obviously the integrands will be equal. That means del cross E equal to minus del B del T, which is nothing but the differential form of Faraday's laws. So del cross E equal to minus del B del T is nothing but the differential form of Faraday's laws. So this is the integral form, and already we got the general Faraday's law in the form of E equal to minus d phi dt. So I think Faraday's laws part is clear to you. Okay. Now let us move to the our basic aim in this chapter. Actually, in this lecture series, that is to reach Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations. Why it is so much important? What about his contribution? Basically, Maxwell formulated ingeniously the laws of physics, the laws of electrostatics, laws of magnetostatics, and electromagnetism in the form of four specific equations, which will give us the total behavior of an electromagnetic field. Now, it is considered that these four equations are the backbone of electromagnetic theory. These equations basically give us the electromagnetic field equations, and from there we can move to electromagnetic wave equations. Now, before discussing them, let us first take a look what about the basic contribution of Maxwell. The chief contribution of Maxwell is to recognize the fact that if electric intensity changes in a dielectric, then a current found to flow through the dielectric known as the displacement current. Okay. To recognize the fact, first contribution and major contribution is to recognize the fact that if electric intensity changes in a dielectric, then a current flows through the dielectric known as the displacement current. In the light of the displacement current, then he modified, that means the Maxwell modified Ampere's Circuital law. Maxwell modified Ampere's Circuital law, and from there he found the differential wave equations for electric field and the magnetic field. In the light of displacement current, Ampere's Circuital law was modified by Maxwell, who found some inconsistency. So, hello students. Actually, I'm extremely sorry because of some network issue, I got disconnected. So, let us start from our old discussion point. That is Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations, the most important person in electromagnetic theory and his contribution. Actually, Maxwell ingeniously formulated the laws of electrostatics, the magnetostatics, and electromagnetism in the form of four equations with which we are very much familiar, and these are ultimately known as Maxwell's equations of electromagnetic theory. And these equations are considered to be the backbone of electromagnetism. Why these are called as backbone of electromagnetism? Definitely Maxwell has very specific contribution. What about that? Actually, the chief contribution of Maxwell is to recognize the fact that if electric intensity changes in a dielectric, then a current flows in it known as the displacement current. In the light of displacement current, then Maxwell modified Ampere's Circuital law, and ultimately he expressed the electric field and magnetic field in the form of differential wave equations. And from the solution of these equations, it was found that electric field and the magnetic field intensities are mutually perpendicular waves traveling through free space with the velocity of light. So ultimately, it is proved that light is an electromagnetic wave phenomenon, which was proved by Maxwell himself. And its direct experimental confirmation was given by Frank Herge's experiment. So let us take a look at this once more. So what about the contributions of Maxwell? He recognized that if electric intensity changes in a dielectric, then displacement current flows through it. Even the dielectric is in the form of vacuum. Okay. Then in the light of displacement current, he modified Ampere's circuital law, and from there he expressed electric field and magnetic field in the form of two differential wave equations. Now their solutions represent electric and magnetic intensities as mutually perpendicular waves traveling through free space with velocity of light. So ultimately he proved light is an electromagnetic wave phenomenon. So from the inconsistency of Ampere's circuital law he started, and he ultimately proved that light is an electromagnetic wave phenomenon. So its direct experimental confirmation was also given by Frank Hodge. So this is the Maxwell's contribution if we consider them in the form of this just some points. Okay, let us now clarify each and every point in little bit detail. I will not be able to complete it in today's class. Definitely in the next session we will complete it. Okay. So to go for inconsistency in Ampere's law, let us first take a look at the four basic equations of electromagnetism so far with which we are familiar. The first one obviously is Gauss's law of electrostatics. We know the integral form is E dot ds surface integration equal to Q by epsilon naught, where Q is the charge enclosed by the closed surface enclosing a volume V. In differential form, it is given as del dot E equal to rho by epsilon naught, where rho is the volume charge density. As E into epsilon naught equal to D, the electric displacement or induction vector. So Gauss's law in differential form is expressed as equation A. Now Gauss's law of magnetostatics in integral form, we found it as d dot ds equal to 0. And in differential form, in equation B, we have expressed it as del dot B equal to 0. Next is Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. That means del cross E equal to minus del B del T, the differential form, where the time derivative of magnetic field gives us the electric field. And the fourth one, that is in the form of equation D, we are getting the Ampere's law, that is del cross B equal to mu naught J, where J is the conduction current density and B is the magnetic field. So by looking at these four equations, it is found that first two equations give us the divergence of electric field as well as magnetic field. And the last two equations give us the curl of electric field and magnetic field. Now, Maxwell found that fourth one, that means the Ampere's law in this present form, is inconsistent and does not hold good for time varying fields. To verify it, how he moved, let us take the divergence on both sides of equation D. So del dot del cross B equal to mu naught del dot J equal to 0. And since divergence of curl equal to 0, so del dot J equal to 0, we are getting from Ampere's law. Now, according to equation of continuity, we all know del dot J plus del rho del T equal to 0, where rho is the volume charge density. Basically, it is nothing but the differential form of conservation of charge. So in electromagnetism, always we have to consider it. Okay. Now, del dot J equal to 0 in equation of continuity only if del rho del T equal to 0. That means charge density rho is constant. Charge density rho is constant. So Ampere's law in the present equation form is valid only for steady state condition when rho is constant, not for time varying fields. Because you can remember, we already considered as the implication of the equation of continuity that if there is no accumulation of charge anywhere, that means del rho del T equal to 0 means rho is constant. Then only del dot J equal to 0. That means this Ampere's law in the present form is not at all consistent with equation of continuity as well as there is no time dependent term is existing here. So to take care of both the facts, that means consistency with equation of continuity as well as the inclusion of time dependent term, a new term JD is added with it. That means equation D is now converted to del cross B equal to mu naught J plus JD in the form of equation F. Now, what about JD then? Because this JD is added with J so that anyone can understand that JD must have the same dimension with J because it is added with it. But what about JD and where it will arise? Okay, or how it will arise? To identify JD, again, you start from expression or equation F and take the divergence on both sides of this equation as per the prescription of Maxwell. That is del dot del cross B equal to mu naught del dot J plus JD, obviously 0 equal to because divergence of curl comes here. Now from there we are getting del dot JD equal to minus del dot J. Minus del dot J means plus del rho del T from equation of continuity. So time rate of variation of volume charge density we are getting here. Then del dot JD equal to del del T of rho. What about rho? According to Gauss's law of electrostatics, it is del dot D. According to Gauss's law of electrostatics, it is del dot D. So del dot JD equal to del dot del D del T. Del dot JD equal to del dot del D del T, because time and space derivatives are independent of each other. So we can interchange their positions without affecting the result. So del dot we are taking it outside, then del del T of D we have kept here. That means now we can identify JD equal to del D del T. So JD is found out as time rate of variation of the electric displacement vector. That's why it is called the displacement current density. And the modified form of Ampere's law now becomes del cross B equal to mu naught J plus JD equal to mu naught J plus del D del T. So modified form of Ampere's law using the displacement current density expression as done by Maxwell is found out to be del cross B equal to mu naught J plus del D del T, that is J plus JD. In this form, it is now valid for steady state phenomenon as well as it is compatible with the equation of continuity for time dependent fields. In the present form, it is valid. That means modified form of Ampere's law is valid for steady state phenomenon and is also compatible with the equation of continuity for time dependent fields. Here, J is called the conduction current density and JD is called displacement current density. That means in this expression, as a source of magnetic field, we are getting two terms or two contributions. One is the conduction current density, with which we are familiar, where large number of charge carriers normally available inside the conductor to produce the magnetic field there from their movement. And another we are introducing here as a new term, that is JD, the displacement current density, which is nothing but del del T of D. D means epsilon naught into E. That means basically it is epsilon naught del E del T. So time rate of variation of the electric field. Time rate of variation of electric field is nothing but the displacement current density, which can also produce the magnetic field. So second source of magnetic field we are getting here in addition to conduction current density in the form of displacement current density, where time rate of variation of electric field is identified as one of the sources of magnetic field. So I think all of you are getting it now. Something new, and starting from some inconsistency, we are getting a new term as given by Maxwell. Okay. So the detailed implications of displacement current density we will do in the next class, that is the next session. But today what we are going to do, then finally, what about Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations? What about Maxwell's electromagnetic field equation? Just take a look. Del dot E equal to rho by epsilon naught, the Gauss's law of electrostatics. What about its significance? Divergence of electric field at any point in a closed surface enclosing a volume V is 1 by epsilon naught times the volume charge density at that point. I'm repeating, divergence of electric field at any point in a closed surface is 1 by epsilon naught times the volume charge density at that point. Closed surface enclose the volume V. Obviously, for positive charge, divergence is positive, and for negative charge, divergence is negative. For positive charge, there must be a source point that we already discussed in our vector concept session. And for negative charge, obviously divergence will be negative because line will be inward. So there will be the sink point. Okay. Now let us come to the second equation. That is del dot B equal to 0. That is Gauss's law of magnetostatics. So what about its physical significance? It represents the divergence of magnetic field is 0. So magnetic field is solenoidal, resulting in non-existence of isolated magnetic monopoles. So del dot B equal to 0 represents the divergence of magnetic field to be 0. So magnetic field is solenoidal, resulting in non-existence of isolated magnetic monopole that we already discussed. Now let us come to the third equation, that is del cross E equal to minus del B del T in the form of Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, which signifies that with time varying magnetic field, electric field is produced in the form of Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So with time varying magnetic field, we are getting the electric field to be produced according to Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. Now come to the case of fourth equation, that is the modified Ampere's law. Very, very careful. It is modified Ampere's law as modified by Maxwell. Del cross B equal to mu naught J plus JD, which signifies, as already I mentioned, that magnetic field is produced due to combined effect of conduction current density and displacement current density. So physically modified Ampere's law signifies that magnetic field is produced due to combined effect of conduction current density and displacement current density. So just take a look at these four equations. These four equations, initially the first three was given by two physicists. Gauss gave two, electrostatics, magnetostatics. Then Faraday gave the laws of electromagnetic induction. Next, Ampere tried to give one law in the form of Ampere's law, but some inconsistency was found out by Maxwell, and that's why he modified Ampere's law in the form of this displacement current inclusion with it. Now, when it is asked that what about Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations, you have to write all these four. Mind it, without modified Ampere's law, if you write the old version of Ampere's law, it will not be considered as Maxwell's electromagnetic field equations, because after only modification of Ampere's law, it was found that all four relations are equally valid for static as well as for time varying fields, and gave the total behavior of the electromagnetic field as a whole. Not only that, particularly in the last two expressions, what we found that time varying fields are incorporated. In the submodule 4.03, the title is given as Time Varying Field and Maxwell's Field Equations. Here the time varying magnetic field is there. It was already included in Faraday's laws, but time varying electric field in the form of the displacement current was first included by Maxwell, because JD means epsilon naught del E del T, because it is del D del T. So time rate of variation of electric field is included here. Not only that, in case of modified Ampere's law, I am repeating that we got a new term in the form of displacement current, which can produce the magnetic field too, along with the conduction current. Conduction current was known to us, but displacement current was not known to us. And in the next class, we will find that displacement current may arise in vacuum. In case of the capacitance dielectric, if we even use the vacuum as dielectric, still the continuity of current can be maintained. So that is because of this concept of displacement current. Okay. So in the next class, we will start from this point. First, we will discuss the implications of the displacement current density that we haven't done today. And from there, we will move for the wave equations part and their solutions to identify that light is an electromagnetic wave. Very, very interesting class that will be also. And I think today you also enjoy the class, because something very, very new and different we got. And what about the genius work of Maxwell? You got some impression about that. Okay. So let us hope for the next class now. I think today you have enjoyed. So thank you, my dear students. So stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.